What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Mikasa Sukasa on American Freedom Radio. It has been a long time, American Freedom Radio. I hope you all enjoyed your Labor Day weekend, as obviously I took Monday off because I firmly believe in Labor Day. We're gonna talk about some labor and wage rights later on in this episode, but as always, shout out to American Freedom Radio. Make sure that you go follow them on Twitter. You can go to their website as well at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. You can also follow them on Facebook and YouTube. Go listen to some more of their fantastic commentary and analysis. They cover some similar things that I cover, but they also offer their unique flavors and their unique perspective, and I strongly encourage you all to go do so. Just really quick, want to give an update on what's going on with the Roku channel. So we're all good, we're set. We're just waiting for the final approval process to be on Roku. I know a lot of you have been reaching out to me and asking me about it, and I appreciate you all keeping up with it. Trust me, we are as excited and as anxious as you are. I cannot wait to be a part of that. I can't wait for us to continue to grow and to help the people on this network grow as well. And it's going to be a good time. I'm really excited about it. So what else? We have a lot of stuff that's gone on over the last couple of weeks. Oh man, right? Andrew Gillum wins. People got excited, and then recently he's had some disappointing rhetoric, to say the least. Donna Brazil decided to play victim, right? Because as you all know, the superdelegate system had him, some would call it minor, some would call it major. I'm still stuck in between. But there was a legitimate change to the superdelegate system for the DNC. And Donna Brazil writes an op-ed article that I originally thought, I'm not even kidding, I thought it was a joke. I thought she was being facetious. I thought the article was supposed to be satirical, and it was not. She was being so serious. So we're going to cover that and all of the problems that come with that. We're also going to cover up this wage issue with Donald Trump when it comes to federal workers. Apparently, he's decided that he is no longer for the American people and for American jobs, which unfortunately is a clear pattern that we've seen established with Donald Trump, where he says he's about one thing and he ends up doing something totally different whenever he's approached to deal with the issue, whatever that policy may be, but specifically with wages, when it comes to labor, when it comes to draining the quote-unquote swamp. It seems that the only draining he's done so far are just those who he considers the opposition, and obviously the Democrats, who have made it very easy to call out their bullshit, right? So there's that. Also, Omarosa released a new Trump tape. No, it isn't a sex tape. That would be absolutely disgusting. No one would want to see Trump in a sex tape ever at all. Could you imagine toupees flying everywhere? Couldn't stand it. So there's that. And that just released, I want to say, a couple of hours ago. So we're going to cover that also. Also, I don't know if you all heard about or read the New York Times op-ed article that was supposedly written by one person within the Trump administration, but it is being speculated that it was written by multiple people at the high levels of the Trump administration that are part of the quote-unquote deep state, or the quote-unquote resistance, which essentially is the deep state. So we're covering all of it. Andrew Gillum. Oh, we're also covering a potential false flag attack that is being set up for Syria, and the fact that a Virginia senator actually was the one to tell us about this. He was the one to call it out. So that's going to be exciting. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and start with Omarosa. So Omarosa went on The View and actually released part of a recording that involved Donald Trump speaking about Hillary Clinton and the Russia situation. So the White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, and former White House communications director, Hope Hicks, can be heard on the recording talking to Trump. So it goes on to say, and this is the conversation, I think and this is Trump, clearly. I think Hillary is getting killed with Russia. The real Russia story is Hillary and collusion. Somebody told me, Hope, you told me, it was $9 million they spent on the phony report. The phony report he is referring to is the Steele dossier. And Sarah Sanders said it's actually closer to 6. Hope Hicks then responded, yeah, someone just said she's far worse for the country than we thought if she didn't know her own campaign was spending $9 million. Now, that wasn't, like, I think it's kind of irrelevant whether it's 6 or 9. It's kind of irrelevant, but whatever. Trump said, did you see? Nobody knows who spent it. No, I heard it was 9. I heard it was 5.7, but now they say it was 9. Trump really likes to speak in these generalizations sometimes, and it kind of bothers me because he's just always they. You know who they are. Who's they, bruh? You can't just invent stuff off the top of your head like that. You need to be very specific when you're speaking, when you're the president making accusations like that, right? So anyway, it was spent through a law firm. That way they can't trace it, but they traced it. One thing in this business is they trace it. And yeah, close to 9 million. I can't believe it. The reason the law firm is because this way you don't have to give any papers. Okay, that was really confusing sentence. Trump, man, we need to have a conversation about sentence structure. Okay, that's first thing first. But second of all, Omarosa, in my opinion, this is once again just another attempt by Omarosa to try to stay in the spotlight because her celebrity status, obviously her celebrity status in business, which was then transferred into the political realm when she became an aide in the White House, is diminishing, right? Omarosa is not really important. She really hasn't been important to anybody for a very long time. But, of course, she wanted to sell her book. And apparently, I heard, her book did decently well. But that is what that was all about. And they brought her back on The View because she said she had another tape recording. If Omarosa was releasing these tape recordings altruistically, if she was doing it for the good of the nation, if she was doing it to expose Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or Barack Obama, whoever, if she was doing it for the right reasons, then she wouldn't be strategically releasing them a couple of weeks in between TV appearances just so that they would call her back onto TV to have more conversations about, whatever. Like recordings about, I think Trump said, I think Hillary's getting killed with the Russia story. The real Russia story is Hillary in Russian collusion. That's true. So what's the breaking news there? Is the news that Trump believed that Hillary Clinton was colluding with Russia? Because we already knew that was already released in the mainstream and in the independent world. With Omarosa, I'm not exactly sure what she hopes to achieve by releasing these things. And therefore, because I can't really see what the altruistic objective goal politically that she's trying to achieve by releasing these statements, unless she's trying to show us that Trump is a bad president because grammatically he is just absolutely pathetic. Jesus. It is abysmal trying to read Trump statements. Not even going to lie, people. It's really bad. He needs to deal with that. Not even a joke. This is a genuine concern for other people. Man, give this bro a teleprompter immediately. Anyway, but with that being said, I just don't take anything Omarosa says seriously. And now, because of this habit that she's formed of, let me conveniently release things when there's a story that can be bought from it, whenever I can get a TV appearance from it. That means the information that you're releasing is, in my opinion, is extremely reproachable. I think that you have to take it with a grain of salt. Not that, like I said, this is information that was released in the mainstream already, right? So it's not like she dropped anything new. So in my opinion, it comes off. It's opportunistic. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not nefarious. It isn't going to hurt Trump. It isn't going to help the progressive movement. It isn't going to hurt Republicans. It isn't going to hurt Sarah Sanders. It isn't going to hurt Hope Hicks. It's just going to show, once again, Trump has bad grammar and that he thought that Hillary was colluding with Russia and that the Steele dossier was fake and that Hillary's campaign spent money to get it square to facilitate the creation of the Steele dossier. All things that we already knew. Therefore, in my opinion, Omarosa should not have been on The View. I hate giving attention to people like this when there are serious issues out in the world that need to be discussed, because they're not being discussed. And one of the big issues that needs to be discussed, I'm about to bring up right now. This is some serious stuff, people. I don't know if you've all heard this, but a United States senator from Virginia claims that Britain's MI6 is planning a fake chemical weapons attack on Syria. Now, this is being reported by the Independent UK. However, it has actually been reported by multiple publications in the US as well. It is absolutely amazing to me that we are now seeing senators. By the way, this senator actually went to meet with Assad also. So now you have a Democratic House, you have a Democratic Congresswoman in Tulsi Gabbard who met with Assad and changed her tune about Syria. And now you have a Republican senator from Virginia who met with Assad and changed his tune about Syria. And it's being more open and willing to listen to the dissenting voices when it comes to these false flag attacks in Syria. And instead of buying into the BS intelligence community assessments that are full of lies, which everybody should know by now. And I hate having to explain that to people. We're going to get into that right now. But the fact that these politicians are starting to see the reality, which is that clearly there is information being manipulated for personal gain, for the gain of superpowers that are trying to simply monopolize natural resources in this world, whether it be oil, whether it be gold, whether it be diamonds, et cetera, et cetera. They're starting to see through the facades that are being created by the major superpowers and the major NATO powers. So the article says that fresh off of a sit down with the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, Virginia State Senator Richard Black turned up on a Arab TV last week, making an extraordinary claim about one of the U.S.'s allies. Mr. Black said Britain's MI6 intelligence service was planning a chemical attack on the Syrian people, which it could blame later on Mr. Assad. And this is Black, around 4 weeks ago, we knew British intelligence was working towards a chemical attack in order to blame the Syrian government to hold Syria responsible. Mr. Black said on Al-Mayadeen, an Arab news channel in Beirut. Mr. Black said later that he meant the British were planning not to carry out an attack themselves, but to either direct rebels to stage a phony attack with actors posing as victims, which is once again right in line at what we have seen claimed, is right in line with the evidence. What evidence that we have gotten has showed us that these attacks are not leaving any traces, but for some reason they're always leaving victims. We never know what happens to the victims afterwards. The white helmets, are always showing up out of nowhere, but they have officially been banned from participating in Syria. But can you blame Senator Black? The last chemical attack, found out there was no proof of it. Mad Dog Mattis came out and said that there was absolutely no proof of chemical attacks that have taken place in Syria, either the last year or any of the years prior, where it was claimed by the Obama administration that chemical attacks had been carried out by Bashar al-Assad. So that's Mattis, hyper neocon, warmonger, also admitting this. So right now they're batting 0% on the chemical weapons claims, but yet we're retaliating with violence, with missile systems and attacking Russian bases and Syria bases and even Iran bases in Syria. Like it's getting ridiculous. Then what always follows shortly after that? Israel attacks Syria as well. And it's funny to me that this chemical attack, or the imminent chemical attack, is coming on the heels of one of the final rebel camps one of the final rebel groups being crushed in Syria. Over the last couple of weeks, it's been talked about in the Arab news, which I strongly encourage you all to read into Arab news articles and things like that, because they give you a much more objective view of what's happening in the Arab world. Our news is corrupt, right? We all know this. So I strongly encourage you all to read a lot of, if you want to know what's going on, you know, and that way you can get your own objective opinion about it. I definitely do before I read stories about what's going on in America. If I see it, or excuse me, in the Arab world, what I do is if I see a story, I go try to find that on an Arab publication so I can get some context about it. So then when I go for it and read about it in America, and whatever America source I'm reading it in, I actually understand what's going on versus reading or falling for whatever publication's twist, whether it be right wing or left wing, left neoliberal twist. I don't fall for it because I've actually, you have context. So I encourage everybody to do that. But I want to go ahead and continue with this article. So it said, from what I can tell, this is Black speaking once again. They have actually been planning a fake attack, not a genuine one, but one where they actually move people out of town and they have trained people to portray themselves as victims of a gas attack. Wow. He is going full false flag accusation. And he's probably right. And I'm explaining to you why. Mr. Black said this. He said all of this in an interview with the Washington Post. So you have a U.S. senator right now claiming that Syria will be a victim of a false flag chemical attack. And he is telling this story after meeting with Bashar al-Assad to the Washington Post. I know it sounds weird, but little things like this, as crazy as it seems, I actually consider a victory. Does that make sense? Listen to me. When it comes to these politicians, people, they have these hardliners. There's the left-wing hardliners, right? Pro-choice, equal rights for marriage. That's pretty much it. I guess anti-Trump, that's a hardliner. And Russia. Then on the right, you have abortion is murder, and whatever the lobbyists tell me to say. Nah, in all seriousness. No, healthcare isn't a right. Nothing is a right except for my guns. So those are the hardliners for both sides. And then you have the establishment hardliners, which is Bashar al-Assad is absolutely a war criminal. Gaddafi was absolutely a war criminal. Fidel Castro is absolutely a war criminal. We didn't do anything wrong in Africa. We haven't done anything wrong in the Middle East. These wars aren't about oil, but we just happen to always take the oil when we get there. And we always take control of the oil fields when we get there. And the people who have facilitated the most war in our country directly benefit from oil refinery money. But these are all just really big coincidences, I am sure. So, but the establishment hardlines pretty much go the way of there's not a war we don't like. It is not oil that we don't want. And that's pretty much how that goes. And so the establishment always toes that line of, if the intelligence community says that guy, that person in that Arab country, and that African country is the bad guy, the media will echo that, and therefore I have to echo that. That's how the establishment works. So that you've seen Bernie Sanders critiquing Assad, in my opinion, without any genuine facts presented to him, not using any evidence, even quoting what I would call conspiracy theory, whatever definition they like to use of conspiracy theory anyway. That's like based off of no factual evidence. There's more evidence proving this Senator Black's point, who is once again a Republican. So like I said before, one Republican saying that Assad is innocent, one Democrat in Tulsi Gabbard saying that Assad is innocent also. So you're starting to see this awakening within the, I don't say the establishment, but you're starting to see this awakening within politicians, in my opinion, across the board. And I really hope, sincerely, that more people get on that bandwagon. I would love to see more Republicans speak out, because the truth is that there is now a bias towards believing that it is exclusively conservatives who love going to war. According to the left, they're like, oh, it's the neocons, never saw a war they didn't like. Well, it's hard telling a neocon apart with that Obama administration, because they pretty much seem to always all want the same thing. But I feel like if the Republicans come out and call a spade, then the Democrats will be forced to, because the Democrats will not want to risk looking like the warmongers against a peaceful leader. They have to demonize him as much as humanly possible, or they have to jump on the bandwagon. But then Republicans look better. That it forces the Democrats, it forces the establishment Democrats out. And then once again, we can work on doing our progressive thing at the local levels and enforcing progressives and back in power, because it's easier to unseat a dumbass Republican, a crooked Republican as a progressive, than it is to unseat an established Democrat in a given region, who is just as bad as the Republican, but is just a lot more smooth rhetorically and is better at playing progressive or pitching to whatever demographics. So yeah, so I'm excited to hear about this. But here's what's interesting. I was doing some research earlier, and I'm gonna see if I can find the article again, 'cause I forgot to save it. My bad. Okay, so the article written by The Independent describing Senator Black warning everybody about the false flag attacks was about 24 hours ago, more or less. Oh, actually, it was 2 hours ago. Oh, it was 2 days ago. My apologies. Then the original article was written 2 days ago. Independent covered it 24 hours after. But here's where it gets interesting. So, Wall Street Journal, 24 hours ago, about a day after Black released that statement, U.S. says Syria plans gas attack in rebel stronghold. What? You can't make this shit up, bruh. You can't make it up. You cannot make this up. This article was written yesterday, a day after Black released that statement, saying that there was going to be a false flag chemical attack, even though no reports had come out about Assad planning any attacks. We already know that they're going back and forth with the rebels, so that's not new. But for some reason, after the U.S. Senator calls out the potential false flag attack, Wall Street Journal releases an article, U.S. says Syria plans gas attack in rebel stronghold. Washington is, according to Washington, those trustworthy intelligence agencies once again. President Bashar al-Assad of Syria has approved the use of chlorine gas in an offensive against the country's last rebel stronghold, U.S. officials said, raising the prospects for another retaliatory U.S. military strike as thousands try to escape what could be a decisive battle in the 7-year-old war. What? Oh, no. Nah, bruh. Nah, we're going to have to... Listen, people. What the hell? Did anybody hear this source from this particular person, from this particular guy, from this office or official, from, with this proof and this evidence and these facts? So we don't get any of that, right? President Bashar al-Assad of Syria has approved the use of chlorine gas in an offensive against the country's last major rebel stronghold, the U.S. officials say, raising the prospects for another retaliatory strike against Syria by the U.S. In recent discussion about Syria, people familiar with the exchange said that President Trump threatened to conduct a massive attack against Mr. Assad if he carries out a massacre in Idlib, northwest province. So what you're telling me, people, is that this non-trustworthy intelligence community with a bunch of neoconservative military leaders who have had a history of being wrong over and over and over and over again, if not being wrong on accident, purposely misleading us and misdirecting us so that they can get approval and a mandate to go to war. They're just going to drop some information conveniently, give it to Wall Street Journal, and then say, yeah, man, people close with the exchange say that Assad has approved chemical weapons attacks. How? How do you know? International efforts to avert an offensive have failed to dissuade Syria, Russia, and Iran as they try to deliver a crippling blow to the rebels who appear to be on the verge of defeat after trying 7 years to force Assad out of power. Do you know why? Do you know why they can't get Assad out of power? One of the first things you learn in military strategy, and actually one of the first things you learn in philosophy, if you're into philosophy, is that they tell you mercenaries are not as good or as effective as people who are fighting for their country, right? And if you're fighting for your country because you are drafted, you are not as effective as somebody who is fighting because they want to. As in, because they care for their country. They respect their leadership. They appreciate what their country has done for them and appreciate what their country is trying to do for them. Now, unless Assad is just the absolute master of propaganda, I mean, the absolute master of propaganda, and like, he has to be American-esque, Israel-esque in his propaganda delivery. This end to the 7-year war, which is actually a little bit longer, but we'll just say 7 years for all intents and purposes. This end to the 7-year war is coming about because at the end of the day, the rebels are not fighting for Syria. The rebels are just fighting. They're fighting because they were paid to, with weapons we gave them, because with orders we directed to them. There is no conviction. They're not defending their home. They're not defending their freedom. They're not defending themselves against Assad because they know really, like, Assad isn't that bad of a guy. The Assad family, it hasn't really been that bad to the Syrian people. That, like, it's not really Assad. They know that they are fighting with the enemy, on behalf of the enemy. And therefore, their conviction to fight and fight until they absolutely win is not as high as those Syrian soldiers who are standing with Assad because they know that it is him against the entire Western world for one of the only resources that can make sure that they ride off into the future with a prosperous economy that is nationalized and kept separate from the influence and austerity given by the NATO countries. And so because of that, that is why they keep voting him in, and he keeps winning with like a 90% vote, or 90% of the vote in Syria. They vote him in because they trust him. The soldiers fight for him because they trust him. This is one of the key mechanisms I try to use to explain the Fidel Castro phenomena. We tried to assassinate this man over 200 times. Didn't work. We're in the United States claiming that Fidel Castro is the worst leader of all time. Meanwhile, 50% women, 50% male legislature that actually is responsible for making the laws in Cuba. They're responsible for most of the policy in Cuba. It wasn't Fidel Castro, actually, although we were led to believe that. Fidel Castro, for some reason, so obviously the United States was trying to assassinate him, but his own people wouldn't go near him as far as trying to assassinate him because of how much they respected him. Fidel Castro desegregated Cuba. Fidel Castro in Cuba has one of the most revered medical schools, not only in their country, not in South America, not in Central America or the Caribbean, but the entire world. People from all over the world go to Cuba. Fidel Castro was able to keep out Spain. Fidel Castro was able to go to South Africa and help fight against the apartheid so that Nelson Mandela and his people could thrive. So if Fidel Castro was the evil, wicked human being, the evil, wicked man, like the one before him, named Batista, why was he not overthrown by his people like Batista was overthrown by his people? Remember how they tried to paint Nelson Mandela at one point? Why was Nelson Mandela not overthrown by his people like the leaders before him were overthrown by their people? Why was Maurice Bishop of Grenada not overthrown by his people, but the United States? Why was Mossadegh from Iran the first democratically elected president of Iran? Why was he not overthrown by his people? Why did the United States have to get involved? Because these people are put in power and respected because of them taking a stance against Western imperialism. And when you are a soldier fighting for a leader, who was fighting for your country and your well-being. And when I say against the world, I mean that literally against the world. It does something to inspire that soldier. It does something to inspire that doctor to do things that are amazing with less means, which is the only way that a doctor in Cuba somehow managed to find the cure for throat cancer while being victims of an embargo and being cut off informationally from the Western world, but also from interacting at different conferences like NATO conferences and United Nations conferences. And they still somehow managed to discover the cure for throat cancer? Because when you are fighting for your nation and you know you are right, when Russia was fighting against Germany in World War II, when we delivered aid to them way later than we were supposed to, when we were reneging on our promises, when other allied nations weren't doing their part to help take down Germany because they were so worried about protecting their colonies, Russia knew that they were right. They knew who they were fighting for. They knew what they were fighting for. It had nothing in that instance. It didn't have anything to do with Stalin as much as it did with protecting Mother Russia. And when it was time for, Stalin ended up dying. But when it was about time, Stalin had to face a lot of adversity as a leader because he indeed was not a good leader. Leaders in the Eastern European countries, same exact thing. They were not good leaders and therefore they faced retaliation from the people. But yet, for some reason, Bashar al-Assad can't be overthrown. Look at what history has shown us. Bashar al-Assad can't be overthrown probably because he is a very good leader, dealing with controversy against every Western nation, keeping his sanity, still has a beautiful family, by the way. You should really check them out. He has a beautiful family. They love him and respect him. That's why he can walk around with a suit and a tie and a fresh temple taper fade, a little bit on top, smiling, challenging the media. Says, where is the proof at? Do you not demand proof for X, Y, and Z before you execute an attack? Well, what about this country who is your ally, who's doing the exact same things that you accuse us of doing, but U.S. doesn't care about them, but they want to pay attention to us? And he can boom, boom, boom. Every question they ask him, Assad has an answer for it immediately because he is speaking from the heart. He is speaking the truth. So when he is speaking to his people, he is speaking the truth. You know why? Because they live it. And when does it come out that he is speaking the truth? After the United States launches missiles. So if the United States is launching missiles against innocent people, they say, wow, Assad told us that this was going to happen. He said there's going to be a false flag attack and that we will be attacked for absolutely no reason. Look at what happened. He's predicting this, and he is keeping us away from these people, from doing business with these people, because they are this dangerous, they are this trigger happy, and they don't have our interests in their heart. They have their own. So even if we do build an allyship with them, look at what happened to Iran. People have no idea that Iran used to be our #1 ally. They were the country that we sold the most weapons to in the Middle East. The moment that they try to nationalize their oil and take control of their own economy, guess what happened? You probably know. The country rebelled against the president who wanted to save them from American imperialism. Wow, that seems to be a pretty consistent pattern in history, doesn't it? It seems to be a pretty consistent pattern that we cannot get a leader who is very good, duly elected, who wants to say, you know what, United States, no offense to you, I just want to make sure that I can take care of my people, and therefore I want to just go ahead and nationalize my oil supply, make sure that I maintain my resources. I'm going to opt out of being part of the WTO if that's fine, because I am a sovereign nation. Last time I checked, I'm still going to be part of the United Nations. I still want to be part of peace talks, but I want control of my nation. When does that happen, people? Never. We were putting the Eastern European nations, when they were trying to get accession into the EU in the late 80s, early 90s, we were putting them on austerity. We were putting them on austerity. It was us who was doing this. We were 25% of the EU's economy. So we would put them on austerity through the federal banking system, through the world banking system. So it's no wonder that these countries don't trust us. We are never helping a single nation if it, one, isn't in our interest, and two, isn't coming attached with a very high price tag that is accruing interest every single step of the way that we know you will never be able to pay back. Why? Because we control who you can and can't trade with. We control what resources you can and can't grow in bulk as far as agriculture is concerned. We control what you can and can't build. Our countries, our corporations buy the patents on the biggest innovations in the world. Our countries decide if your economy is allowed to thrive. Our country decides if you can trade your resources as far as your people are concerned. We decide whether we accept your college students and they can take that knowledge back with them to their country. We decide that. So why would any country want to participate in that? That is what Assad is fighting against. His people are aware of that, and that is why they are winning this 7-year war. Because they believe in their leader and they believe in their cause. That is why we still can't win in Iraq and Afghanistan. People, they know. They know. They know why we were there, and it had nothing to do with 9/11. Hate to break it to you people. So, just as a brief recap, in case you just now tuned in, Senator Black, state senator from Virginia, actually said 2 days ago that Britain and MI6 was planning a false flag attack in Syria. Literally 24 hours later, Wall Street Journal releases an article saying that sources close to the exchange in the White House are alleging that Bashar al-Assad has officially authorized the use of chlorine gas attack on the Syrian people. What a coincidence, right? I don't know what else there is to do at this point. If you can't see the truth by now, then you're staying away from it on purpose. You are choosing to ignore it. You are choosing to ignore it because it is inconvenient to you, because it makes you uncomfortable, because the idea that our leaders are not altruistic, that they are actually working against the interests of the American people, strikes fear in your heart, as it should, if there wasn't people fighting, what in several ways, whether it be behind the scenes in politics, whether it be in the independent media world like myself. There are people fighting for you. There really are. I know, I talk to them every day, people. So that is why I have no problem being emboldened enough to tell you that our intelligence communities are not working in our interests. I have no problem telling you confidently, a president has not worked for your interests in literally decades, maybe 70 years, excluding the second half of JFK's tenure. So there's a little bit of JFK's tenure, and then FDR, and then there was the Democratic takeover by neoconservative Democrats, which is how Truman got elected. Ever since then, it has been for the greater good of the elite, and that is it. No variation from that, except for JFK's little 2-year stint where he woke up and then he called out the CIA, he called out the deep state, and look what happened to JFK. And so why are we still having a discussion? Why do we still have to have the conversation about whether or not the United States government is on our side? We see intelligence officials getting questioned all the time on CNN, CBS, MSNBC, Fox News, and they just echo the same thing. I'm like, hold on, bro, why are you still, what are you doing? You're not a director anymore, and you're supposed to be intel, and yet you're being recruited to tell us stuff that you're not even supposed to be having access to. Why? And you go and find out, you do some research. Oh, this person has a federal a military contract with this group, this weapons contractor. This CIA agent or former CIA director has a contract with this weapons contractor. And it's like, bruh. So I'm tired. And Zenga, man, you just happened. I saw capitalism. I like what you did right there. Capitalism. Capitalism kills. Absolutely. If you ever say socialism has killed more people and that is a lie. Just in Iraq, we killed millions of people in the name of capitalism. Just in Iraq. Not insurgents, which, by the way, were people protecting their homes for the most part. But millions of people in Iraq over capitalism. Not including Afghanistan. Not including Somalia, which we were in. Not including Libya, which we were in. Not including Honduras, which we were part of a coup. Not including the mouths that are being left unfed in Venezuela, not because of socialism, but because of the oligarchs who are also, what a coincidence, tied to the United States. Which, by the way, I'm doing a separate video of Venezuela. I might get into it a little bit. I like how, so Dancing K says, live in a socialist country, see if you'd want it. I do live in a socialist country, actually, if you didn't know. And if you would like to have a conversation about what socialism is and how it's implemented, it's never implemented holistically. No system is implemented holistically. Even capitalism isn't being implemented holistically. Socialism is implemented with capitalism in different variations depending on the needs of the nation, because every nation has unique economic situations. Like, for example, Denmark has to have a little bit higher cost for their groceries. Why? Denmark's climate It's just shit. It's always cold. Therefore, all their grocery store prices are a little bit higher. Their taxes are also a little bit higher because they have to import and export everything. They're not like South America. They didn't originate tacos. Right? Or just in general, just Spanish ingredients, right? They're not like the United States and Brazil, who have an abundance of sugar cane, so they can't use that. So therefore, they have to pay the cost. In Israel, real estate is way different than it is in the United States. In Israel, pretty much all the prices are like New York prices because they are working with a tiny slither of land, but a lot of people who like to own a lot of land. So it costs a lot of money. So therefore, their taxes are a little bit higher. Their cars that they're driving in Israel are mostly from the early 2000s and the 90s because they have high import costs due to Netanyahu being a dickhead. That's his fault. But so they're a socialist nation. Israel is socialist to the core. When a worker gets fired in Israel after working at their place for a year, they are guaranteed severance. Israel has 100% healthcare coverage, not only while they're in Israel, but also while they're in the United States as well. When they leave the military, they get an abundance of money that they can use towards a business, towards a wedding, if they want to use it earlier, or they wait about 5 to 6 years and they get just a lump sum of like $15,000. So yeah, people in Israel seem to be pretty fucking happy because they're taken care of. And they have like a bad version of socialism. They don't have socialism with the Wall Street attached to it. They don't have single payer with a Wall Street attached to it. They don't have the type of social welfare that our corporations have, or have the ability to give, I should say, because our corporations are directly benefiting from consumerism. If we don't consume, they don't make money. If we don't have money, we can't consume. It is common fucking sense. But instead, all of our socialism goes towards corporations, and y'all think it's capitalism. And it's not. I like how Fred said that. Fred, after Venezuela president demanded 30% of the oil profits for the citizens of globalists, of Venezuela, the globalists crushed Venezuela's economy. Absolutely. Let's use our common sense. What oil-rich nation is poor? I'll wait. What oil-rich nation is suffering from a low GDP? It's having trouble creating jobs. It's having trouble providing the basic necessities to their citizens. Name one. Saudi Arabia, not even Syria is having that problem. They're in a perpetual warfare right now. So you got Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iraq, Iran. Libya wasn't even poor. Libya was rich as shit. That was their problem. They were too rich. Jordan, Dubai, pretty much any nation in the UAE. But all those nations they were let me rephrase that. They are allies with the United States, or we went to go liberate them so that they would become liberate. How my freedom get all the way over in Iraq? How my freedom get all the way in Libya? We're fighting for your freedom. Boy, my freedom is not in no damn Libya or Iraq or Afghanistan. My freedom ain't over there. My freedom is here, bro. Relax. Stop sending my people over there, my brothers and sisters in arms. Our freedom's right here. Let's overthrow these oligarchs. How about let's do that? Because at this point in our country, the way things are running, this is about the time, we start calling in the cavalry. We're like, we have to overthrow this government. By the standards that we set for countries to get into the United Nations and get into the EU, they would have never been granted accession if they were playing by the rules of the United States. One of the main rules that you have to follow is an auditable, non-corrupt voting process and government. That was one of the only ways you can get into the EU. Or that's one of the most strict criteria, I should say. Not the only way, but it's one of the most strict criteria. You had to meet a certain amount, but you didn't have to meet all of them. But that was like the number one. You had to have a strong economy that was self-sufficient. Is our economy self-sufficient? Or is it relying on fiat currency that is only sovereign because of the petrodollar, which we are literally going to perpetual proxy warfare every single day to maintain? So would we meet that requirement to be granted accession into the EU? Is our economy stable and consistently so? Do our oligarchs run our nation, or does the government do, the federal government and the people? Oh, here's another really important one. Are you in crippling debt to other nations? Are you managing your debt ceiling? Are you providing adequate healthcare to your nation? Like, these were all requirements to get into the EU for Eastern European nations. We wouldn't even meet 90% of the requirements. But yet, we're always constantly talking about, let's go dethrone somebody. Let's institute a regime change. It's so frustrating. But once again, let's keep pretending this. Go live in a socialist country. See how you like it. Bruh, if Israel wasn't such a stupid nation, like if their government wasn't so stupid, I would love to live in Israel. Boy, what? The problems with Israel are only problems because, like, Israel is literally benefiting from the ultimate version of, yo, we just gonna give y'all money every couple of years. How would like 50 billion every 3 years sound? Is that enough? Do you need us to give you a little bit more? We can give you some separate military funding. The 50 billion is just for y'all. You know, go on vacation. Do something nice for yourselves. Take over another Palestinian settlement. Yeah, they're socialists. So is Denmark. So is Switzerland. So is Germany. So is Britain. So is France. You know how many people I meet from Europe? They're like, man, I actually really love America or whatever state that they're in. But nah, yo. Can't really do that. Can't live here. Like, why? Because they luckily are fortunate enough to get provided an opportunity, you know, when it comes to jobs, and they are appreciative of that. They meet great people. They have a unique network, which is usually how they got over here. But they're like, I can't even go to the doctor for a flu shot because it will bankrupt me. I'm scared every single day that I might get in an accident. I'm scared that I might break something. I'm scared that because of the way that our banks act, that there will be no accountability. If I do make a lot of money, you're only insured to like $200,000, and then what happens after that? You're done. If the market crashes because of the banks gambling with your money, even though you didn't give them permission to, at least explicitly. So, my apologies if you don't think that we live in a primarily socialist nation. If you don't think that we live in a primary socialist nation right now, because we do. We do. It's just that you're not getting the socialist benefits. Corporations are, and the politicians are, and really rich people are. But us, you gotta pull yourself up by your bootstrap and hope that automation doesn't take your damn job, because they're not gonna provide you any fucking school to help make sure you get another job, unless you want to go into crippling debt. So, that being said, we're going to take a little break. About 5 minutes, we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. Doing a quick little mic check. Are we good? Does it sound better now for you?
Go ahead, give me a test.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. 1, 2.
Yeah, it sounds good now.
Okay, good, good.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bring the cue up and let you mellow into it.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you personally for sharing your views and insights.
What is going on, party people? We are back. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the second hour of Mi Casa Su Casa. And I am your host, Niko House. If you are just now tuning in, of course, I strongly encourage you to subscribe. We are very close to 10,000 subscribers, people. And that is a big, big deal. Because once we hit 10,000 subscribers, I can actually start doing some special productions on YouTube's dollar, and that would be really cool. And I can bring you obviously better quality stuff. We get a little bit more access to YouTube features. We're not as censored as we are below 10,000, so definitely subscribe. We're all, like I said, we're very, very close, and if you help us get there, you'll be contributing to something great. I promise you. Once again, a little quick update on Roku in case you missed the last update. We are all set to go on Roku. We're just waiting for our final approval because they had to have they did a channel customization and all that good stuff. And so once they got all the videos preloaded, they checked the content out for a final review, and then that can take about 7 to 12 days. So that's the stage that we're still in. We're just waiting to finish to hear back from them, and then as soon as we hear back from them, of course you will absolutely hear from us, and you can go ahead and start catching us on Roku, as well as American Freedom Radio, as well as YouTube. And like I said, we also, I have a show coming out soon as well, like a television show. So that's going to be interesting. Can't wait. A lot of exciting stuff coming up, people, and hope that you all continue to be a part of that. With that being said, I want to go ahead and move on to the next topic. This was something that for some reason kind of stayed under the radar. Surprisingly enough, like the neoliberal establishment didn't jump on it, but I personally believe that once again it is just indication that they don't really care about the average worker. They don't care about the average American. They just they're here to resist. They're here to fight Trump and all that good stuff. So from there, it could probably be determined that the reason that we didn't hear a lot about this is because they actually approve of this. Oh, I got a little bee in the house. I don't want to kill the bee, though. I really got a bee in here, but I don't want to kill it. I just watched the bee movie, so I'm really sensitive about bees right now. Hold on. Okay, I had to kill the bee, y'all. So let's try it again. I'm sorry, Ray from the Bee movie. I didn't mean to mess that up. I'm sorry. I'm not a bee killer. I believe in pollination. I know what good it does for flowers. I feel really bad about that. I usually let them out, but I gotta do my show, so whatever. So anyway, like I was saying, so Trump canceling federal raises for federal employees, the measly 2% that they were supposed to get, by the way, and then not hearing anything about it from the neoliberal establishment lets us know one thing that we've always known. It's not Dems versus Republicans. It's not conservative versus liberals. It's not neoliberals versus neocons. They're all playing for one big team. And unfortunately, it is not on our team. And the dollar sign is their mascot, no matter what they say. So I want to read to you this article from the New York Times. President Donald Trump is canceling pay raises due in January for most civilian federal employees. He informed Congress on Thursday, citing budget constraints. Hey, y'all. He's citing budget constraints. He's citing budget constraints after he approved a $700 billion military budget. Nothing to see here, folks. Just business as usual, right? Can't complain. But let's continue. But the workers still could see a slightly smaller boost in their pay under a proposal lawmakers are considering. We'll see how that goes. Trump said he was nixing the magnanimous 2.1%. 2.1%. Wow. I can't even believe that they were even going to consider giving such just a benevolent raise in that's just so sweet of them. The fact that we're even going to consider 2%, I might be able to open up an HD 4K Netflix account with a 2% federal raise. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Really? So you already weren't going to give federal employees pretty much anything. That isn't even relative to inflation. Seriously. It isn't relative to the increase in the bills that we've all seen. If you have an apartment or a lease, your apartment price is going to increase by more than what that raise can cover. Guarantee it. But hey. So, Trump said he was nixing the 2.1% across the board raise for most workers, as well as separate locality pay increases averaging 25.7%. His excuse, and they don't say his excuse, but I'm interjecting that. His excuse is that we must maintain efforts to put our nation on a fiscally sustainable course. Federal agency budgets cannot sustain such increases. That huge 2.1% increase. We can't sustain it. However, $700 billion military budget. You can't make this shit up. He looked at you dead in your face. He said, hey, look, guys, I'm just trying to be fiscally conservative here. We simply can't afford to give federal workers pay raises once a year. That's an extreme idea. I think it's absolutely absurd, even though literally most jobs give you a pay raise every year. Some give you a larger pay raise, some give you a smaller pay raise. In unions, they definitely give you a legitimate pay raise. But nah, not y'all. not federal employees who literally keep the country running. You don't deserve a pay raise. And that's okay, federal employees, because I'm right there with you. Because the military, we got denied our pay raise. Like, we got like a 1% pay increase. Military retiree did. You know how much we are, I think so, the military itself, right, the personnel, only gets about 2% of the entire budget spent on them. Now, here's what gets interesting. About 0.02% of the entire budget, not the military budget, but the entire budget, is spent on federal employees. From that, retirees are given an even smaller percent of that 0.02, or no, excuse me, the 0.2%. It's like maybe a couple of $1 billion, a few $1 billion is spent on us out of $1 trillion budget. How sweet of them. They then deny us healthcare. I used to have to pay no copay. I had to pay I've paid like $6 for my prescriptions. If I had surgery or if I had an emergency room visit, 100% covered. Now I have a $250 deductible, at least, depending on whether it's in the network area or out of it. I have a $30 to $60 copay every single time I go to the doctor just to get my refill prescriptions that I'm required to get every month. I can't just do normal refills like most people. I have to pay $12 or more potentially, and now then my quarterly premium has gone up. Whereas it used to be free, then it was like $50 a quarter. Now it's $75 a quarter, and so now it is even. Ooh, I like what John Smith just said. John, that sounds like you know what you're talking about, man. John referred to breaking up the federal military back into militias, which is where we were literally until Teddy Roosevelt, actually. We were militias, state militias. The reason that the federal police department, that local police department still use the insignia sergeant, commander, or if you want to go specific, so they don't say private, but deputies and sergeants and colonel and lieutenant, like they got that because the militia used to be the local police departments. We also used to, our country was really created to run very similar to the EU, but it got too federalized whenever executive power consolidated all of the power really into the executive office. And so it made it so that they can act first, and then Congress and the Supreme Court would have to refute it later, versus having it be outside of anything that had to do with being the commander-in-chief of the military. Everything policy-wide had to be approved through Congress or the states themselves, and then the president could introduce, but they couldn't just executive order their way to salvation. Like, that's not how it worked. Teddy Roosevelt created that, and so militias was one of those things that Teddy Roosevelt got rid of. And I'm sorry, I just had to talk about that because that's actually a really interesting point. A lot of people don't know how important the militia game was. There was no National Guard. There wasn't a need for National Guard because our militias were made of us. They were our people. They were your neighbors, and you were essentially, you were going to be a part of the neighborhood, your state's militia. But in a situation like that, you don't worry about like martial law, like what we're worried about right now. We don't worry about the National Guard being used against its people and being threatened to be used against its people like it's Standing Rock, because that militia would be made up not only of the people who live in North Dakota, but specifically of those Native Americans who are being attacked and who are being threatened and who were being removed from their land. The militia would have united at that point against the federal government, instead of the federal government being able to use the fact that there is no militia to protect the state's people and the state's sovereignty, and cities and nation sovereignty. So yeah, sorry, got off on a tangent there. But anyway, so back to what I was saying. Trump killed the wage increases. As workers across the country head into Labor Day weekend, Trump cited that significant cost of the federal workforce and called for their pay to be based on performance and designed to recruit, retain, and reward high-performing federal employees and those with critical skill sets. At the same time, Trump planned during a Friday appearance in Charlotte, North Carolina, to direct the Labor and Treasury Departments to issue regulations designed to make it easier for small businesses to pool resources so that they can offer retirement saving plans to their workers. So that's good. Administration officials told reporters. Do we believe that? We'll see. Most small businesses say high costs discourage them from offering plans like 401ks, the official said. Democrats criticized Trump for moving to cancel the scheduled pay raise, citing tax cuts he signed into law last December, which we're going to go into. That law provided steep tax cuts for corporations and the wealthiest Americans and more modest reductions for middle and low income individuals. So, once again, we're seeing Trump pretty much eat his own words. He claimed that he was going to be for the American worker. He claimed that he was going to fight for us and drain the swamp, and that our dollars were going to start once again working for us. Once again, we are seeing that was a load of malarkey. It was a load of Ben Shapiro. That's exactly what it was. BS. It was some BS. Because he's not. And you know what's ironic? You know how Trump hates every single thing that Obama does. He undoes so many of Obama's policies, whether it be the good ones or the bad ones. Actually, he never undoes the bad ones. And that's actually what the point of this statement is. Do you know who else denied a federal pay raise to employees across the nation? I give you one guess. Thanks, Obama. Yes, it was not only Trump who's done this, but he's just, once again, taking pages out of the neoliberal handbook, because we know Trump isn't actually Republican, and actually mimicking a policy that Obama did first to deny a federal pay raise. So this just seems to be a little consistent issue that we're seeing within Donald Trump right now. I hope y'all are realizing this. And I hope, and this is for the Trump stands, you know, everybody for some reason feel like they have to advocate for people instead of policies. I feel like you're always going to be left disappointed if you advocate for people over policy. Because people are fallible, but policy, you can't, there's nothing to debate about a person's personality when it comes to the implementation of policy and what that implementation can or cannot achieve based off of the mechanisms. So this seems to be once again a pattern that we are seeing with Trump. He said that he was going to work for us. His tax cuts did not help us at all. The money went into the pockets of the millionaires and billionaires and the corporations. What's interesting is that Trump also said that he was going to hold these politicians accountable. And he's going to stop letting them run the show. But give me a second. I'm going to look up a stat for you. So Congress got to increase their pay in 2010 by $20,000 a year. I'm going to explain to you the significance of that. Keep that date in mind. 2010. They got to increase their pay. In 2009 and 2010, between that area, the Senate increased their pay. Now, just to clarify, because I want you to understand the significance of this, because these caveats and clarifications they don't apply to the federal world like they should, but you'll see what I'm saying in a second. So, the federal civilian world, the majority and minority leaders and the president pro tempore have received higher salaries, of course, than the other members of Congress and Senate. Currently, leaders earn $193,000 a year. Now, a leader would be majority leader, Speaker of the House, shit like that. Okay, cool. Do you remember what happened in 2009, 2008-ish, around that time? You remember? I remember. I went to the military. In fact, while I was in basic training, there was long lines outside the recruiting office. Because this little thing called a recession hit. You couldn't afford to pay your mortgage, remember? You were pretty much forced into the military, forced back into college. People were forced to stay into the military, although they had planned on getting out. You couldn't get a job. You still haven't been able to afford a house since that market crash. And it looks to me as if these people gave themselves a $20,000 pay raise. Where y'all find $20,000 at? I must have misunderstood the definition of crash. Because what it seems to me that the definition of crash isn't a crash for everybody. It's not for all of us. It's just for all of us. It's for us. Our market crash, not their market. Even though they were the ones that deregulated Wall Street. Even though they were the ones that got paid by lobbyists to allow them to gamble. They were the ones, like in Florida, who literally created a ninja bill because you didn't even go to check the credit of the person before you approved a housing loan. It was called a ninja loan. I'm not even exaggerating. Our legislature did this. Our legislature turns around and gives them $20,000. They give themselves $20,000 pay increases. What special skill does it take to be a legislator? Because those Republicans, remember, they believe that working at McDonald's requires no special skills. And as a person who worked at McDonald's at 15 years old, I can tell you, the skills that you will learn and you will need going into the real world for the rest of your life, you will absolutely learn at McDonald's if you are good at your job and you actually take the job for what it is, which is interacting with people that you may not necessarily want to interact with, being on your feet all day, being able to multitask, listening to one person, putting in their order, taking money from another person while counting their change, giving it back, being polite, being cordial, remember what's going on in your headset, and then putting that into the computer. That seems like a pretty useful skill set. But the Republicans are the ones that tell y'all fast food workers and retail workers who literally make the world go round, they have no special skill sets. That waiters and waitresses deserve $2, $3, $5 an hour, depending on what state that you're in, because they're getting tips, so it's okay. I have a question for y'all. Are Republicans good at their job? Does it seem like they're very competent? Does it seem like they've acquired some special skill set that have made them master legislators? I dare you. Tell me right now, what special, unique skill set does it take to be a senator or a representative in the House? What exactly is it that they do that is worth making $120,000 a year and $175,000 a year, respectively? They have nothing. And yet, Republicans don't have a problem signing on with Democrats to give an artificial wage increase to themselves. A minimum that they make, that's what they call it. But they can tell you that your market dictates your pay raises. Trump can look you in your face and tell you, nah, man, we just don't got it. Well, why don't you got it? Is it because you just spent $700 billion on the military? Nah, totally unrelated events. That's just coincidence. We know that we might be going to war at some point. Probably, I know we are, because I mean that's pretty much all we talk about every day in the war room. So they can literally bail out the banks, people. They bailed out the banks. They bailed out the banks without punishing anybody. They punished one person. It was scapegoated. They bailed out the banks, but they couldn't give 3, 4, 5% mandatory pay raises. Because guess what? With 3, 4, 5% mandatory pay raises, you probably, now this is just me. Now, okay, I gotta break this down, because some people I think don't understand how. First of all, I don't know if y'all know what Labor Day is about, but Labor Day is about things like the minimum wage. The minimum wage was absolutely created so that not 2 people, but 1 person could work, make that wage, and support their entire nuclear family. That is what the minimum wage was created for. It is an utter lie to believe that it's always being perpetuated by conservatives that somehow, some way, the minimum wage just is dictated by the market. That is a lie. It has always been a lie. And here's what's even more interesting about that lie. In states like North Carolina, in the Charlotte municipality, and in St. Louis, Missouri, the Republicans actually fought so that municipalities could not increase their wages that they are increasing, ironically enough, because their markets are doing so well that it is actually mandating a wage increase in order for people to be able to afford to live in that area, so their cities will continue to prosper and grow. The Republicans are actually stopping capitalism from taking place. But not only does the world right now, not the world, mostly the United States, and mostly Republicans, Democrats too, but Democrats for monetary reasons, but conservatives, because they have convinced themselves into this. They're like in this alternative universe where they think because they say things that they can just totally ignore facts in history. And it's really fucking irritating. I hate having these conversations, people, because I shouldn't have to. But do you know what happens if you pay 2 people in a household $25 an hour? That means they're making, what? $25 an hour, 4 days a week. What, $2,000 a week, right? Roughly, more or less. Making about $2,000 a week. All of a sudden, I don't have to shop at Walmart. Walmart cannot monopolize groceries and electronics. I don't have to shop at Amazon. I don't have to wait for 2-day shipping or 3-day shipping or 4-day shipping, because I have the financial power to shop now at my convenience. Therefore, guess what? I'm going to be going to small businesses because they have what I need. I'm going to be going to small business grocery stores, bakeries, local businesses, because the buying power is back in my hands. If you are Walmart, you are incentivized to keep the wages low, give people tips on how to collect federal welfare, and just have them shop in your store by giving a discount. So you're keeping all the money in-house. You're not giving these people a chance to save. So anytime they want money, what do? They don't ask for raises because we've been scared shitless. We've been told you don't ask for wages. You get a wage when we tell you get a raise. So they ask for more hours instead. You become a slave to your workplace. You become a slave to the place where you consume, whether it's buying groceries, buying your electronics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you do not have the power to choose whether or not you want to shop at Walmart, shop at Whole Foods. These businesses are not forced to compete for your wages or for your labor, or for your business or for your labor. And so it's a little bit irritating when I have to explain that actually, if you increase the minimum wage to $25 an hour, which I think is actually what we need, I'm not exaggerating, I think the minimum wage should be $25 an hour. Oh my God, economic prosperity would be insane. Capitalism would actually be allowed to kick in. It would cause maybe a 10 to 15 cent inflation. But guess what? The inflation would probably be canceled out. And I'll tell you this before I continue with the story. The president who will go down as the best president economically in history is the one that figures out how to not only slow down inflation, but how to actually create deflation, to incentivize deflation, to make our dollars work more and more and more in our favor. An abundantly, just a super crack team of economists. Not like the fake economists that go to school and then they're taught scarcity is the reason things are expensive. That's a lie. That is literally a lie. Resources are not scarce. That is a lie. But if we can find the president who can cause temporary deflation over like a 10-year period, and then we can go back into normal inflation, hopefully a little bit less than what we know now, but normal inflation after a 10-year period of deflation, but making sure that our productivity matches our income like it always has throughout history until recently, we would be able to save this economy. I truly believe that. So what's interesting to me, like I said, is that the Democrats haven't made a big hullabaloo about this. They haven't been standing up in arms. I can't believe you, Trump, you're screwing over the workers. It's just because the Democrats don't care about the workers. I hate to break it to you if you're a Democrat, but you need to wake up to this reality. It sucks, but it's the truth. We need these raises. Federal employees are the backbone of this economy, are one of the backbones of this economy, but because there's not really a middle class anymore, and the federal employees, the little bit of middle class that we have is occupied by mostly federal and state employees. If you take their raises, if you take the regionality raises away, you are once again implementing another crippling blow policy-wise to our economy and facilitating a faster and more significant crash. And until you stop listening to these faux economists who have no idea what the hell they're talking about, these economists that are so experienced. They're so great at what they do. When's the last time they prevented a crash? They couldn't even help us recover from the most recent crash. We're still hurting from this. I am at the point in my life where I've accepted I am not buying a home within the next 15 or 20 years of my lifetime, which is absolutely insane. My grandmother and my grandfather owned a house in their early 20s, as most baby boomers did. My grandmother and my grandfather had jobs that were paying absolutely fantastically at their ages, as most baby boomers did. But it was around the time that my mom entered the workforce in her mid-20s that productivity and wages started veering off of the charts. We were being forced to put out way more effort, way more productivity, and we're not being covered for it. And it is hurting us. It has hurt my generation. It hurt my mom's generation, which is in turn hurt my generation, which is in turn hurting our kids' generation. We can't even spend time with our kids. We're scared to have kids because we have to work 3 jobs. We'll never be able to spend time with them. I don't want my kids to be on welfare. I'm sure that most millennials don't want their kids to be on federal welfare either. But these people are leaving Trump. You're supposed to be on our side. That's how you sold yourself. As the all-American president, that's for the workers. But you give tax deductions and cuts to corporations. So you're all about corporate welfare, but the wage increases that these people have not, this isn't welfare. This is an entitlement. They are entitled to these pay increases because of the work that they have put in, because of the inflation that they are not in control of, but yet they still have to live and be productive and have a livelihood in with their families. They've earned these wage increases. And you are denying them, repeating a policy of the man who you pretend as if he had never implemented a policy that you've ever liked, that ever was useful to the American people. And not only are you implementing one of Obama's policies and repeating it, but you're repeating one of the worst ones. You're repeating one of the worst ones. Whose side are you on, man? I'm sorry, man. Y'all, you mega people. Like, I'm one of the, and anybody who watches this channel will tell you, I am one who will give Trump credit where credit is due. I have no problem with that. But where do we draw the line? Where do you all hold the president that you respect accountable? Without lashing out and attacking and fighting and unsubscribing and whining. I thought you were one of us. No, I'm a populist. I'm gonna tell like it is, in the famous words of Bernie Mac. Rest in peace. And if you want for this country to move in a positive direction, then it is your responsibility to hold your favorite politicians, your favorite party, your favorite, whatever your ideological leaning is. You need to hold them accountable. Because you can't go over someone else's house and say, look how dirty their room is, when your room ain't clean either. We have to work together and remember the policies and the people are more important than the individual. When I have to call out Bernie Sanders, I do it. I will do it. I have done it, and I will do it again in the future. I promise you, it's going to have to happen. When I have to call out progressives or people who pretend to be progressives, and I take the backlash, I take the hit, I could have 100,000 subscribers right now if I never called out when Trump does something wrong. I could have 100,000 subscribers right now if I had never called out when Bernie Sanders did something wrong. I always take hits whenever I call out these super celebrity politicians. But I don't care. Because the truth is much more important than a convenient lie. And the truth is, Trump seems to be wavering and folding and buckling underneath the pressure of the deep state in a lot of ways, of the Wall Street economy, of his rich friends. And he hasn't, to me, proven with that beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is going to fight in the way that he portrays himself to be that fighter that we needed him to be. So, what's our next topic? Ooh. So, I don't know if y'all heard yet, but Andrew Gillum pissed me off. I did a video briefly covering this like 2 days ago, but I want to talk about it again because it's very important and some people didn't see the video, of course. Andrew Gillum campaigned in Florida during the gubernatorial primary elections on Medicare for All. Andrew Gillum got Bernie Sanders to come out and endorse him because he was pushing Medicare for All. Andrew Gillum got the people behind him that were speaking out for him loudly and proudly. They were very passionate about his candidacy. People in Florida were always coming up to me talking about, are you going to vote for Gillum? Are you going to vote for Gillum? Are you going to vote for Gillum? I can't vote for Gillum in the primary because I'm independent and that ain't changing. But they were asking me, was I going to vote for Gillum? I said, he's unfortunately seemed like the best option so far, but that isn't, I give him the benefit of the doubt. But the moment that he switches up, the moment that he thinks that he can make a centrist rhetorical shift, I will have to call him out, and I will call him out swiftly because I already don't like the smile on his face. I know that sounds really weird, and it's nothing personal against Gillum. I just know I can see ambition in people's eyes. I know when you're looking at me as a constituent, or if you're looking at that next office. And Gillum, unfortunately, always had that look, that he was looking past me, past his constituency, past the polity, until that next office, which would probably be for Senate, and past that next office, which would probably be for the presidency. Not because he genuinely wants to help the world. I don't think that he doesn't want to help the world. But I do think that he is willing to capitulate to the centrist establishment way too much, to corporate donors even way too much, that I think that even if he wanted to help the world, that he would be unable to do so because he is beholden to his donors, as most people end up proving to be. And with that being said, it seems like Andrew Gillum has made a rhetorical shift. Even after I was really nice to him on Twitter and told him not to, specifically the day he got elected, I made it very clear, and a bunch of people retweeted it because I wanted to let him know that whatever CNN is saying about you is irrelevant. Once the independent community, independent journalists, once we get a hold of your shifts, we're calling you out. And people are going to hold you accountable based off of what the independent community says. Not based off of what CNN tells us to say. Not even based off of what Fox News tells us to say. Fox News can tell us all day that DeSantis is a racist asshole. And guess what? They're probably right. DeSantis is most likely a racist asshole. But guess what? They're just telling me why I shouldn't vote for DeSantis. I don't know if you've caught on to this yet. And a lot of politicians have not been able to get this concept. When CNN tells us the truth for once about somebody like DeSantis, when he called Gilliam a monkey, or he said, don't monkey this up, we know what he was saying. It's a dog whistle. That just tells me why I shouldn't vote for DeSantis. Andrew, That don't mean I'm automatically voting for you. That does not get me out of my bed to campaign for you. That does not get me to convince my friends to vote for you. And you should also know your skin tone or your gender is also not going to win you an election anymore. I don't really give a damn that you're black. I care from a personal perspective, but when it comes to my politics and who I advocate for, I don't give a damn if you look like me or if you look like RuPaul. Are you for single payer health care? Or are you not? Are you for calling out the military-industrial complex and holding those accountable who are perpetuating it and ending it and moving on to a peace economy? Or are you not? Are you going to continue to propagate lies of the establishment? Or will you dedicate your candidacy and when you occupy your office, are you going to dedicate that time to bringing about truth? Or are you not? It's that simple. I don't care what your skin tone is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care if you're gay, if you're straight. I don't care. I really, people say they're colorblind. I am not colorblind. I just don't care. Whenever I'm an activist, I am in activist mode. And if I'm specifically activating for access for people of color into political offices, I'm very clear about that. But once you hop onto that stage, once you place yourself there, being black is not enough. And I absolutely despise when someone says, I'm black, that's why I know better. If you cannot articulate that experience and translate that for the average person, because what black people deal with, other people deal with in smaller amounts, or other people deal with in different ways, maybe not because they're black, but because of other circumstances. If you cannot translate that experience into how other people are dealing with similar experiences, then it doesn't matter. Black people are economically impacted in a very unique way. Now, what are the impacts? The impacts are important. You need health care just like me. The reasons may be different, but we know both need single payer health care. Black people are unfortunately disadvantaged when taking standardized testing and getting into great colleges and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, debt and all that good stuff, business loans, mortgages, credit. Cool. But you also, for whatever reason, maybe it's because of this corrupt government or corrupt economy, you are suffering from bad credit and loans. We're impacted the same way, even though the origins may be different. And at that point, which is the most important point, when you're coming from a purely objective perspective politically, I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're a woman. If you're not speaking about the issues that impact us every single day, then you're not going to win. And that is you being black, being a woman, being white, being brown, speaking 18 different languages, being the most cultured person in the world doesn't mean anything to me or anybody else nowadays, mostly. It is going to get me to get up, go campaign for you, and go vote for you. Only the truth will do that. And when you switched your rhetoric on your campaign website, Gilliam, to I believe that Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All will expand Medicare to Floridians, to most Floridians. Isn't that inherent in the definition of Medicare for All? You moron. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It will expand. What does that even mean? Who cares? I mean, yes. You are saying a material fact. Your statement or your assertion is factually correct. But you stop saying you're going to fight for Medicare for all. In fact, what he said was, I'm going to fight the premium increases that Donald Trump care brought on Floridians, and I'm going to strengthen the ACA. Ooh, ding, ding, ding. That sounds like your donors talking. That sounds like Bernie Sanders, unfortunately, in this one issue, which Bernie Sanders hasn't made a lot of mistakes when it comes to endorsements. I will give him that. But in this issue, it sounds to me like Bernie Sanders made a mistake. Or in this one issue, it sounds to me like Bernie Sanders made a mistake with his endorsement. Because if Gillum does not get his act together, he will lose the gubernatorial election, and it will be no one's fault but his own, trying to use an archaic method of victory by moving to the center in order to appeal to more voters who you think are centered. We are not in a centrist time where people just want to maintain the status quo because everybody's just doing so well. Single payer / Medicare for all / whatever you want to call it is literally a life or death situation. It is the decision that people are trying to figure out when they are can I even afford to have kids right now? Like, are they going to keep my baby if I can't afford the hospital bill? How am I going to afford checkups? I have to go every month or every 2 months or every 3 months. I don't have kids. I don't know. But you have to go a certain amount of times a year in order to make sure your baby is safe. But you can't even do that because you don't have health care. And when you finally do get health care, you end up finding out that those appointments aren't included. And if they are included, you end up finding out that you have to pay $1,000 deductible before you can actually go to those appointments and have them included. God forbid your child gets sick when it's 6 or 7 or 11, you can't afford health care because you make too much money so your kid can't qualify, but you don't make enough to actually take care of your kid. I don't know what Andrew Gillum or these neoliberal dumbasses are thinking by having him shift rhetoric right before potentially one of the most important elections in the country, in my opinion. Hey. Don't be promoting no anomaly on my YouTube. I just went to my YouTube. Don't be promoting anomaly on here. I don't have a personal problem with the guy, but he is 100% Trump. If you ever criticize Trump or question Trump, he will totally ignore it and laugh it off. And he doesn't want to be a serious journalist, although, like I said, some things that he says are true, but I just don't like promoting people who all they ever want to do is worship, hero worship, celebrity worship. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to move forward together in a legitimate way where we can actually build. You can't build without a foundation. You can't have a foundation on hope and dreams of what you want somebody to be, or what your hopes and dreams of what you think is going on based off of your very limited box of views and perspective. The reality is a reality. Our economy is about to crash. If you don't want to call people out for that, then it's going to crash, and you're partially responsible if you're a journalist or claiming to have that title, and you want that responsibility of being a journalist. Then it is your job to convey the news objectively as it is. But like I was saying with Andrew Gillum, I keep hearing that he took money from Soros. I have to confirm that, but I wouldn't be surprised because this is something that I heard from people who actually liked Andrew Gillum very early on in his race. So this isn't like, new news, unfortunately. I really hope that he readjusts himself. I really hope that he is saying this because, like I said, he just got bad intel on rhetorically what he should say. Because even with like Ocasio, at first she was getting bad intel on what would be the proper response to certain things. She didn't go with her gut or her heart in those instances. But guess what? When she finally did decide to go with her heart, remember that CNN interview that's gotten like 30 million views now? When she said, you know what? I'm tired of y'all telling me that we don't have money for single payer health care, and yet you have money for perpetual warfare every single day. All right, like you're trying to convince the world that we're broke, but we always have have enough money to go to war. And we are in a moral crisis right now. Is it war and death or prosperity and health? And when she finally decided to speak from her heart, look at what happened. People were like, wow. Even people who are neoliberal and establishment were like, wow, that's the truth. John Smith nailed it. It's like Hillary as far as Gilliam is concerned. He said that's progressive during the primary, corporate during the general. Absolutely. Absolutely. He's kind of joined the whole I'm, part of the resistance train. People are telling him it's a good idea. Mind you, these are the same people who are giving advice to his competition. So now, once you win, the Democratic Party, once you're one of them, because he's still one of them, they embrace you. Then they send their best strategists who couldn't even beat you in an election to tell you how, well, we couldn't beat you because you were black, but we can beat the Republicans. Don't worry. We got that down pat. Yeah, because everybody knows the Democrats know exactly how to beat Republicans, which is why their blue wave is more like a blue puddle or a blue raindrop or blue morning dew, maybe. It's just not a wave. It's not. And so, Gilliam, I'm asking you, or I'm telling you at this point, don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. I am not being malicious. I am not trying to come at you in any type of way, but I am coming at you with experience enough to know that the progressive world, you need to keep your ears to the streets. We're telling you what we want to hear. We're telling you every single day, look at your mentions. Stop looking at the ones that are just talking about how happy they are that you're running for office, and start looking at the critiques of what you are and what you aren't advocating for, what people would and would not like to hear from you. Because Lord knows, you have so much potential, extremely well spoken, a very good command of the issues, you even talked about the environment, which is something that's extremely important to us, especially here in Florida. You got on board with Bernie Sanders, you got on board with Medicare for All very early on in your race. You did a damn good job as mayor of Tallahassee. But now is where it counts. It was easy to pretend to be progressive when the entire world was watching you, or wasn't watching you. But now that the world is watching you, it seems to me that you're more so interested in capitulating to the center, to the establishment, because you know that you have plans and aspirations that include offices beyond governor, beyond Senate. You were looking at that presidential seat, so you were trying not to piss off certain people on the way there. You're throttling back. It is very clear. So whether it's because you're beholden to your donors, or because you're beholden to your ambitions, that at this point, because you're not advocating 100% only for Medicare for all or single payer with public option or private option, it's looking like you're beholden to your ambitions, and your ambitions are not altruistic and they're not for us. So, with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Mikasa Sukasa on American Freedom Radio. Make sure that you go and follow American Freedom Radio on Twitter, on Facebook. Go to their website, subscribe to their radio channel. Check out some of the other people on American Freedom Radio. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not done so. We are almost at 600 subscribers. Or excuse me, not 600, 10,000. We're at 9,600. We're actually 9,700. Once we hit that milestone, it'll be harder for YouTube to suppress us and to censor us. We get a lot more access to give you better quality, and we will absolutely continue to grow and bring you more. And I strongly urge you all to continue to help us grow. Donate to our Patreon if you have not. You can do so by clicking on the link in the description below. We have a goal of 500 patrons. We are not there yet. We're at like 178 or 179. And so you can help us reach that goal. Hell, I'm telling you, even $1 helps. If you just want to be a patron and be like, yo, I was in their Patreon membership before any of y'all jumped on this ship. Because once we get on Roku starting next week, we're just in the approval stage. It's on. Once the television show starts, it's on. We're taking off, and we want you all to be there with us. We want you all to be updated on because when you're on Patreon, I do specific updates about what's going on with the network on Patreon, and so you get the inside track and the inside scoop, and we get to bring you on behind the scenes every step of the way. And I love interacting with y'all. I get show ideas from what I see from people who post on my Patreon. So make sure you go to that. You can donate as much as $1. Hell, you can donate $100. That'd be nice too. But every single cent, people will tell you, look at the show 2 years ago. Look at the show now. We use it to help us grow, to bring you better quality, and bring better news and analysis for your benefit. So with that being said, party people, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.